Welcome everyone, I'm Anton Swanepoel and today we'll be exploring Fort Klapperkop. Now, Fort Klapperkop was the third of four forts built in the 1900s after the Jameson raid. It was built to protect Pretoria. The fort itself is located in a nature reserve that you can cycle or hike. It has amazing views over Pretoria. Because it's got so much to view, we will be doing the viewing or the drive up and the outlook over Pretoria in a separate video. The fort has a number of artillery pieces. There are a couple of rooms here, which includes an officer's room, a hospital, a stable and a kitchen. The magazine includes a number of weapons that was used during the early 1900s. So let's go and check it out. Fort Klapperkop is on John Rissocks Drive off the R21 highway just before you enter Pretoria. From the road you will have magnificent views of Pretoria and the nature reserve. A short distance up the hill, take the road to the right at the Fort Klapperkop sign. Proceed to the gate, sign in and then proceed on to the parking area. In 1895, current South Africa was divided into four territories, namely Cape Colony and Natal under British rule, and Orange Free State and South African Republic, or then known as Transvaal, under the Boer or Afrikaner rule. On 29 December 1895, British colonial statesman Sir James led a force of around 600 men into Transvaal Republic. The aim was to raid the Transvaal and to trigger an uprising by the workers in Johannesburg, who were primarily British expatriates. It was hoped that the workers would recruit an army and take over the Pretoria Armoury. Due to communication problems and unwilling workers, there was no uprising. After briefly exchanging gunfire with a Boer outpost on 1 January, Jameson turned towards Krugersdorp. Around 32 kilometers from Krugersdorp, he came under attack from a small Boer force of soldiers who had dug them in. Jameson then turned away to Doornkop, but was struck during the night by the relentless Boer force. The next day, 2 January, a larger Boer force under the expert leadership of General Piet Cronje surrounded and trapped Jameson and his men. After losing about 30 men with no way of escape, Jameson surrendered. Even though the raid was unsuccessful, the Boer leaders realized that a war with the British was unavoidable. They decided to fortify Pretoria, and originally 8 forts was suggested, but only 4 was built. Fort Klapperkop was a third of the 4 forts to be built. The fort was designed by Otto Albert Adolf von Dewitz and Heinrich C. Werner and completed on 18 January 1898. The fort had originally one long tom and a couple of 37mm Maxim guns, as well as a Maxim hand crank machine gun. However, as armament was in short supply, the fort was gradually stripped, and by the time it actually saw action, it had no more armament to defend itself with. A British force under the command of Lord F.S. Roberts entered the area, and on 3 June 1900, Fort Klapperkop came under fire. On 4 June 1900, fighting broke out in the surrounding area around Pretoria, and the other forts were attacked as well. Without sufficient manpower, weapons and artillery, the Boer forces surrounding Pretoria surrendered on 5 June 1900. The British forces took over the 4 forts and built a number of blockhouses around Pretoria to add additional protection to Pretoria and the forts. However, the Boer forces never tried to retake Pretoria, thus the forts did not see any action afterwards. In 1904, Fort Wonderboomkoord and Fort Daspoortbrand was detached as military assets, and it was planned to rebuild these forts as jails. However, that did not happen, and the 2 forts fell into ruin. In 1922, Fort Schanskop and Fort Klapperkop was handed over to the South African Defence Force. On 8 July 1938, the two forts was declared national monuments. During World War II from 1939 to 1945, the two forts were used as ammunition storage facilities. In 1954, Fort Wonderboompoort was donated to the Pretoria government, and in 1962, Fort Klapperkop was restored to a military museum. The museum was opened on 23 May 1966. In 1978, Fort Schanskop was restored to a military museum by the South African Defence Force. In 1993, the South African Defence Force closed both Fort Schanskop and Fort Klapperkop. In 1994, the Pretoria State Council took over the two forts and reopened them as national monuments. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and also hit the bell notification button so you can be notified of new videos as I release them. Coming up in the next video, we'll be looking at the nature reserve surrounding Fort Klapperkop, as well as the views from Pretoria. For more attractions in and around Pretoria and Johannesburg, see my books Pretoria, 20 must-see attractions, and Johannesburg, 20 must-see attractions. For tips and advice for visiting South Africa, see my book 50 Facts You Should Know When Visiting South Africa.